within the school.
Hello. Oh, it's starting to come on. Let's see. How's my hair? I don't know. Someone tell me. It's fine. I know. Make it work. I think we're live. Oh, yes, we are. Good. I'm not crazy. Well, I'm crazy, but no more than usual. It's all just a day's worth of Valium. It's no problem. Let's see who's here. Oh, hello, Nelson. How are you and your shoulders?
Welcome back, Jacob.
Why, thank you.
Did I miss you? No.
Yeah, I know. Not at all. I'm not surprised.
We text each other all the time. It's like you never go away.
Yeah, you can still make me feel special. Just feel special. Damn it.
Text me at the random times, and sometimes you call me from the bar. Also, I'm like,
okay. And on that note, let's be very fair. You insist on having a 10:30 at night catch up of business stuff, and I was ready to get out of the house on a Saturday. So therefore, legit and fair. And uncommon.
Well, we did.
Right, Stephanie's on my side here. She looks like I just.
I'm on your side about what? I'm on your side about what?
Just say yes.
I do business every dang day of the week, so do not even.
I know.
I'm used to texting Nelson on a Sunday. Hey, what's going on?
Hi, everybody.
I think I stopped working last night at 11:30. I stopped on Sunday to get caught up and prepare for this week, which I'm about 50% where I want to be. So yeah, I get it. That's why I love you guys. All of you work just as hard as we do and make it go on. Oh, Carlos, you ready? Got some news for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, everybody else should probably learn this too. So I had a very interesting conversation with one Yolanda Vargas.
Yolanda Vargas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was telling me about what's struggling, what people are going through in the dance industry right now. Specifically, well, it's going to be part of today's theme as well, with millennials, but all the dancers that were there and what they're struggling with, which has given me the idea, which I'm actually trying to get Steph prepared for, because she's going to be super excited about this when she actually knows what's going on. She's on her way for it. So in your eyes, Carlos, what has been going on in the dance industry? How do you feel people are holding up?
Wait a second. Hey, can I call you back? Hello? Okay.
Talk about timing.
Sorry, yeah. We've been hit like really hard, in the dance industry. Some competitions most of them have canceled. Some are trying, to put something out, a product. Like we tried doing our North Coast competition that we hold in Cleveland. We were the first one, multi-day, and people were like, 50-50, positive, negative. Most of the people were positive that we ran it, okay, because people want to go out and just do things. But most of them are bad situation. Some studios are going under. Like big studios, with people, 15 people. People have been running these studios for 20 years. So some of the smaller ones are still hanging in there, like me. So, I have, 3 part-timers, and myself, and so it's rough, Some people, the people that really want to come out are going to come out, and they're going to be wise about, coming out, taking their lessons. They're going to be safe, they're doing the right things, Then you have other ones that, I know some people that have been in their homes since March and they haven't been out. That's crazy. But we've been hit hard.
The thing that most people are starting to understand now that we're coming to the holiday season, this is the time of year everybody starts to look at new releases being put out for award season, so they get their last part in. They're actually thinking about canceling award season because people haven't been able to get exposure on their films that they've been working on and producing. all the music that is released, all the holiday shows are being canceled. The West End is not opened yet, or I think maybe 3 theaters think they're able to do it. Broadway is thinking about not opening up until May 2021. And that's, again, hurting so many actors and actresses, tech workers, dancers, choreographers, directors. The arts are where everybody turns to in times like this. And prove me wrong. How many of you guys did not go on Netflix while you were here going through the pandemic, which was created by artists? What about the books you read or the art that you look at? Art is everywhere that you go to when things get stressful and tough. And it's something that I have been struggling with. When I decided to learn about financial education, it was specifically to help other dancers and actors and actresses like Steph. When I met her, I told her the same thing because I felt like knowing how to control money gives you the ability to say yes and no to gigs that you do not support or do not further your career or your beliefs. And when you look at different champions like Joanna Lunes, Carlos will speak about Joanna Lunes in a second, the dancers and artists that actually tend to go further, have financial freedom. And they come through various different mediums. However, the starving artist right now is literally starving and they're breaking down. We are going to be helping them. So, Carlos, you take a phone call in the middle of me actually talking with you. I'm gonna kick your ass. Child, I wasn't talking directly with you, whatever. No. So, we are going to be helping some of these individuals by bringing some of them on in various capacities. They've reached out asking for help, and we're actually going to be supporting them, which is going to be, I think, very exciting. So I have also told them to reach out to the artists on our group. That would be Autumn, Carlos, Steph, a few of you, and they're going to be asking you guys questions. So get ready. I'm actually really excited. We're going to be teaching them different skills outside of counting to 8 in a box step or reciting Shakespeare, things that will actually get them somewhere in today's post-COVID world. So I think it's the best thing we can do to help our communities as well and try to support the ones that we love. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so who's on here right now? Let me see who the big group is. Fabulous.
Right now.
Yeah, well, I get that. That's why I've been stalling. So when we go on to this, Greg, how are you doing, my friend? James, Greg, Josh?
I'm great. How you doing, Jacob?
Fantastic. Welcome to the show. Josh, you and I had a crazy weekend, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. That was good times. More crazy for you than me, but.
We're going to be covering that on Real Estate Survivor this Tuesday and Thursday. So that's going to be crazy. But yeah, you learned a lot, didn't you?
Hey, smelled like money. Even through the phone.
Dirty money, just dirty money. Just like sitting on a street corner at 3 a.m. It stinks. It works though. Hi, Pamela, darling. For those of you who don't know, Pamela's head of our HR. And so she endorses these inappropriate comments, which is great for me. Yeah. And actually reminds me, consent is also audio. So you have to make sure you give people's permission before you offend them. So is everybody okay with that today? Thumbs up. Okay, wonderful. Well, speaking about fragile egos, today our special guest is going to be telling us about the way millennials think and why self-gratification and instant happiness is something that today's millennials actually strive for. Now, in Daniel Francis's book, The Millennial Mind, he breaks it down into 3 different categories of millennials: early, middle, and late millennials. So, Daniel, here's a pop quiz for you now that you're here. I want you to guess, which section of the millennial bracket do I fit in?
I mean, that's gonna be tough, but I'm gonna go on a limb here and say possibly late.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We've lost Daniel. He's no longer available for the call today. And stop video. I'm kidding. You're not supposed to admit it. I mean, you're right, but still, shut up. Welcome to the show, Daniel. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, man.
Well, glad to have you. You're actually the product of Nelson Everett Tarano's research, and he wanted to come on and bring you on. Nelson, why did you find Daniel so fascinating?
because he's super awesome. And Daniel and I are both authors, has an incredible voice. And I was really inspired, Daniel. So I'm so glad that when I finally get a chat again, and welcome to the community. So you are talking to an entire community of entrepreneurs and business owners and investors. Now, Daniel has a very special spin to the way that he coaches. You focus primarily on millennials and career development and mindset and EQ in order to help the next generation achieve success, but in a non-traditional way. And you have a totally unique approach. Millennial Mind, I thought was a fabulous book, and thank you for allowing me to read it. And your coaching program pretty much exploded. You have this huge social media following. And I wanted to bring you on board because I think with people technically my age, turning 39 on Saturday, by the way, everyone can mark their calendars. Thank you very much. And versus people in the next generation, we all have our way of thinking how we achieve success. But every generation is coined a little bit differently. So Daniel, you educated me on what to expect in the next generation. So I give the floor to you. What should we know?
Yeah, and I mean, I think my story is really interesting because I mean, when I came into Rebit Limited as the name of the company, we were doing leadership and personal development. My parents were doing everything, right? When I came along, I said, well, I like this personal development thing. I think young people need it. Let me figure out how to make it work. They gave me a model that worked for them, which completely just didn't work for me, right? You know, they were all about getting referrals. You're speaking to persons face to face. You're giving them a great experience. And then from more referrals, it just kind of adds on, right? But me as a millennial, mainly dealing with millennials and specifically the millennials on the younger side, no millennial want to give a referral. You know, it's even for me, it's a very uncomfortable feeling for someone to come up to me and say, or especially like I get that a lot with insurance agents, they'll say, you know, do you want insurance, etc., you know, the regular script. And I say, no, thanks. And then they say, well, could you give me the name and numbers of 3 persons? Oh, every time I get that question, I'm just like, can I please not? And then they really try to force it on you, right? And that's what it felt like I was doing at the beginning. It felt like I was really forcing my work onto millennials, and that was not the way to go about it. You know, I would call and say, this is what it is. And, you know, all of what I was taught to do, but it really wasn't received well. So basically the first 2-3 years of me being a coach was just struggle. It was really a struggle. I mean, I remember I quit my job. I was like, I'm going to be a coach now, which was very ill-advised. I just quit my job and I started doing it full time. And in that first 3 months, I had no clients. I was basically just floating in the water thinking, wow, this is a huge mistake. I'm gonna have to crawl back to my job because now I have all my savings is basically running out. And I basically just had to figure out how to do all of this. And the little increments started to change for me when I told my parents, I said, you know, I understand that your model works, but it really works for, you know, your generation, which is the baby boomers, but it doesn't really work for me. So I need to figure out how I'm going to make this work for me. And when I told them things like, okay, I'm going to build my social media platform, I'm going to engage with people online, I'm not going to ask them for referrals or blank, they were just like, that's crazy. But, you know, do you? I hope it works out. And I really said, when I believe in this, I think it's going to work, right? I still remember back then, it was like, probably had 500 followers on Instagram. I just joined LinkedIn. It was a meager 200. And lucky for me, I read books like Crushing It by Gary Vee. I read 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, and all these books that talk about setting high goals, how to utilize social media. And it was just a consistent track of posting regularly, engaging with people. I actually hated LinkedIn when I first got on it because I just thought it was just, I just didn't know how it worked. It felt rigid to me. And it's only when I started to engage with people like Nelson, it started to become a whole community. I would be excited to see certain people post so I could comment and talk nonsense underneath it, but then also learn from what they're saying. And that came from time. And that's something that's really tough for my generation. We don't have that patience, right? And you can't really blame us. We grew up in a generation where basically from birth till about, I don't know, 18, 19, everything is more or less just instant. You want A new game on your phone, you download it. You're tired of something, you just move on, right? School sets up this structure where you don't really have to do much work. You just have to put in the effort and you get it, which is why you can procrastinate and cram. I mean, I spent my whole student career cramming on every single level, even through college. And they said I couldn't cram through college. I was like, yeah, I'm definitely just going to work one very difficult all-nighter and do nothing for the rest of the time, because to me, it just made sense, right? But then you become an adult and you realize none of this stuff works. You can't cram your way through being an adult. You can't cram your way through starting a business or even working or building wealth or understanding how to be an entrepreneur. It's almost like a slow burn, right? And I had to go through all of that painful slow burn to then realize that, you know, if it is that I had to learn this way, because again, I am a millennial. So much so when I wrote the book, I did not want to name it. Like the subtitle is Success Secrets for Unlocking Your Full Potential. I was with my editor for like a month. I wanted to be, I was like, hey, I want to name it Success Secrets for Unlocking Our Full Potential, because I know when you say you're saying that I am the expert, right? But I wanted to say our because I'm right there with you. I'm not exempt from anything I'm talking about and the experiences. I've been there, I'm still there. And this is just life, you know, but I want that argument, so I'll just leave him right there. But, you know, and I realized that, you know, through the experiences that it was very tough for me, because if I look at it on the side of people who I was trying to attract, why would they want to do business with me? They don't know who I am. They never heard of me. They don't even have friends who've done anything with me. And in Trinidad and in the Caribbean, we're very much all about the hype. It's very silly, but that's just the reality of it. We're all about the hype and the excitement, and we like to see big things, and you know, and I had to find a way to leverage that. So when I got the idea for the book, I said, wow, you know, this could actually be it, right? Because I knew that I had to find a way to attract people to me as opposed to me going out and trying to pull them, right? And so I had this elaborate plan for the book, you know, launch the book on my birthday, because, you know, on your birthday on social media, all eyes are on you. So I could use that to kind of build, you know, what I was trying to start there. And, you know, everything was going well. I wrote on the manuscript. I sent early copies to people like Nelson and had them give me feedback and make my little changes. Everything was, honestly, was going really, really, really well, to the point where, you know, I wanted to finance it by myself. And it just so happened that when I went into the bank for a loan, they had a loan for the exact amount that I needed. And it was the last day that the loan was being offered. And I was like, yo, if that's not a sign that this is going to be something great, then I don't know what is. So I was really on a high. And then, of course, you know, the book was supposed to launch on my birthday, which is April 15th. And then coronavirus came to Trinidad around that time, and they shut down everything, literally everything. We couldn't go outside. All the businesses were closed. It was just, it was a disaster. I mean, but luckily, you know, I had a good team. We really sat down and thought about how we could make this great. And it's just so funny how things kind of work out, because inadvertently from writing the book and pushing the book, I built my social media to the point where it was viable to do a virtual launch. So I decided to do a launch on Instagram. It was a live, rent a studio, have a host, have entertainment, but everything was done through social distancing. And honestly, once the book was launched, I specifically remembered the next 3 months after that, there was no active selling. There was just people coming to me saying, oh, I see your book on the launch. I see the ad. I have a friend who read it and they just want to buy. And it transited into things I just never even imagined, you know? Like I have not had to push getting clients to do like consults or do programs. They read the book, they realize, oh, I need to work on this in my life. And then they ask me about it. And that shift was just so dramatically different compared to what I was dealing with before. It was just a whole nother league, you know? And then, you know, people would approach me to talk on podcasts, radio interviews, all these different things that was subtly adding to the momentum, so that even if I'm not, you know, selling a book, or I'm not working on a program with somebody, there's always something that was going on that would then keep the momentum going and keep me moving forward. And, you know, it's just been really, really crazy. And it's hard to explain to people this far, but I always want to connect what I'm doing to what I want to do in the future. So I wouldn't want to just do one thing and then that thing is just it, you know, just have a book and then that's it. You know, I always wanted the book to be connected to something. So for me, that connection would have been creating a self-development program that's built around the book. I thought that would be really cool. I just didn't know what it would look like. And I'm happy to say, you know, this month I launched it. I got like 25 people who are in it. And it's crazy how the process of me writing the book, launching the book, pushing the book has helped me to create a company built around the book, which was not something that was planned. Like that was never really on the books. That just came about because, you know, I started to realize I have a passion for writing, and I still have the consulting. So that turned into its own little business there where I'm consulting people, teaching them about personal development. I'm also writing more books. But then it also showed me that, you know, I am from the Caribbean, right? How you launch a book in the Caribbean is completely different to how you launch a book in the States or anywhere else.
How so, Daniel? Because
Like
okay,
simple things I had to.
none of us are from there.
So difficult that I just could have never imagined. As, for instance, when the book was on pre-order, pre-order it from Amazon. There's what, maybe 20% of the population here that actually has a credit card to be able to use Amazon to purchase a book, right? So here I am, guns a-blazing, saying I have a new book. Here's the link to purchase. They're all like, well, I want to purchase, but I don't have a card. Some don't even have an Amazon account, which blew my mind. So I had to say, okay, well, the strategy for someone from the Caribbean has to be different from the strategy from somebody from the States. So I still did all the global things, but then I had to integrate some local things like saying, okay, you can buy the book from me through this link and I'll deliver it directly to you. Because again, Corona, so nobody really wants to go anywhere. They want all the convenience. I had to basically give them the options that everything they could do on Amazon, they could do on my website, where they could read 2 chapters without having to switch around. You know, all these little things that I would not have thought about in the beginning, but had to figure out as I go along, right? And it's so funny that going through that experience, it showed me that, wow, I really believe that there's so much potential for people locally to produce books that are valuable. So that's going to be another part of the business where I'm basically helping Caribbean authors to just educate them on what they can do, what processes will actually work for us. Because, and this was something that, you know, again, something I had to learn on the way, that we have this weird obsession with becoming like a best-selling author on, let me say, Amazon and Times and all these different things. But when you really look at it, that Amazon bestsellers thing is kind of not really, it really depends on what genre you choose. So you could choose a genre that doesn't really have that many books and you could become a bestseller, but it becomes just a title. And, you know, I felt as though, yes, you want those accolades, but what does it matter if you're not really selling your book, if you're not really getting the word out there, you know? And I'm speaking to all these authors who are trying to feign success, and I'm just like, why are you trying to make it seem like you're doing better than you are when you need help, you know? And it's because, I don't know, I guess maybe we're a proud people, we don't really want to go out and say we're not doing as well, but that's what some people had to do. I see somebody put up their hand. and it was through that, knowing that struggle, I really want to create a side of the business that's all about educating on like what you need to do, exactly how you need to do, what the expectations are, talking about my story. I want to write books on how to write books, which is funny in and of itself, but I see value in that, you know, because it was only recently when I sat down, so like someone locally interviewed me and he was talking about, you know, how many books I had sold so far. And he had also written a book, right? And I told him by next week I'll be at 1,000 books sold, right? So he was like, well, that's crazy, because, you know, my first book I only sold like 200 books in the first year. And that was not even in Corona times. And it just showed me that, you know, we use all these external factors to dictate what we can and can't do, but it really doesn't come down to that. It's really about what you do, right? Because I could have said I give up, or I could have said I'll launch a book later. I said coronavirus is here, so why it doesn't make sense to put it out now. But at the time I said, well, no, you know, there must be a way to make this work. There must be a way to get it out there. It's like seeing the obstacle and saying, well, how can I overcome it? As opposed to, well, I see the obstacle, I guess I give up, or I'll do this later.
So you still sold 1,000 copies of your book during Corona.
Yeah, by
where majority of people don't have credit cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Good job, Daniel.
I think it's like 250 from Amazon purchases, and the rest are from local purchases, whether it be from a bookstore, but like 600 of them are from people clicking a form and me working on delivery, either me or one of my drivers actually physically delivering it to them.
So you didn't let Corona stop you as an author?
Oh, hell no. I mean, yeah, to be in all honesty,
yeah.
You know, I feel like I didn't really have a choice anyway, because if I had decided to postpone, listen, I had bills to pay, I had a whole loan to pay back. So this had to happen.
You pushed.
Yeah, I had no choice. I had to push it.
I've got a question for you, Daniel, and I have a question also.
It's not a question. It's just two statements from stuff that you're talking about. Well, now three statements. First statement, which is like irrelevant, is I love your accent. Let's just start there. I gotta just say that.
I hear that all the time. I was in America for 4 years. I went to school in New Orleans, and every other day it's like, I love your accent. I don't know.
I did not accept that, and I was like, oh my god, this is so interesting. The second thing is when you're talking about feigning, like the other other authors were like faking it till they making it in type of situation. And as a millennial myself, like we value authenticity. So like someone saying, hey, like it's a struggle right now. I'm struggling even as a successful artist, author, like a published author. There's still hiccups in my road. And that in itself is more captivating for an audience, right? It's like, oh my God, they're real people, right? Because that's part of the thing. Like we want to feel like, oh, like that person is not just some foreign alien. They're like real and they can like understand my struggles as well. Like, and then the second thing you just were talking about, which is just like you had no, like Corona didn't stop you from Nelson's and like, push, like Corona didn't stop you. Of course not. And I think it's also a testament to our generation because we've already been dealt to some extent, like it's been, socially like studied by like sociologists and whatnot and like social scientists that like our generation was set up with a lot less opportunities for wealth, right? Like in a lot with more obstacles in its way. And we've always already, even though we like instant gratification, it's because we know that if we like it because it's a relief from when we have to work 20 times harder to get a result. So when we're given a situation of instant gratification, it's like, oh my God, it's a reward for having already struggled X amount of time or X amount of obstacles to accomplish something. And so when you said that, I was just like, of course, like a millennial of all the ones, like of all the generations, quite honestly, in my opinion, like are the ones that are most being able to overcome this situation, even if they're upset, depressed, and like, because we have no other option. We still have to feed ourselves. We still have to pay our bills. Like we still have to like figure some shit out, pardon my French, you know what I mean? Definitely. So like, I love that you said that because it's really important to kind of like drive home, like we've been living in our own coronavirus situation from before coronavirus situation, like in that kind of mentality. And so saying, this is just, it's like coronavirus, coronavirus sucks. So we can't do X, Y, and Z, but we've already had our own hurdles. We've already had our own type of coronavirus for longer already. And so we're already kind of used to having to like, do the hustle, do the hard work and push through it regardless. Like I live in New York City, so I have to pay like a huge exorbitant rent bill. And like I had to wait tables to like make barely anything in tips and still find a way to make sure my rent got paid on time. Like I hustled every day. If it wasn't that, I was nannying. If I wasn't that, I was doing something else. And still like following my artist dream of being an actor. So like, Definitely. So I just wanted to like praise you for acknowledging that, because sometimes people don't always like they just think we're babies sometimes. And it's just like, we're not. Like Gen Z, I think Gen Zs are crybabies, but that's just my own. You know, they've been like,
You know,
One of the things, one of the things, Daniel, you and I talked about when you gave me the opportunity to review the book, and then I gave you feedback and stuff. One of the things that I really appreciated about your form of writing and talking about this generation specifically is that one of the very few coaches that I know actually went into the emotional component of being within that generation. And you did a great job at summarizing, this is what a typical person has to go through, the actual doing, but the actual feeling, the actual thinking of it. It is now common to have $10, $20, $30,000 loan, student loan. That's just normal now. But there's going to be a psychological aspect to it where you feel like you're constantly not keeping up, and you have to live up to these standards from the previous generation, but then you're not always, there's always these reminders that you're not keeping up. So that wears down on that person and really does a number on how they view success or where they're going to go. The way that you wrote that, though, was definitely not academic. And that was one of the things that really drew me to the way you present yourself and the way you explained it. Because you and I were going through some chapters, and I said, I think you need to insert more slang, intentionally insert more slang, because the next generation, we don't talk complete sentences, or they don't talk complete sentences, and it's very quick and a very short attention span. So in order to relate, your message has to be appropriate, and it's just the norm, you know. And I really, really appreciated that, Daniel.
Yeah, for me, even before I started writing, I said one thing the book needs to be, it needs to be relatable and it needs to be easy to read. So that's why I always started off each chapter with, if not my story, somebody else's story that should make you think, oh, you know, I went through this, or maybe I didn't go through this, but there was something really similar that is kind of forcing the same challenge. And I tell you, the more I think about us as millennials and what we go through, the more it frustrates me, because people don't understand where we're coming from. And I feel like they should understand. You know, we are the generation that have gone through so many depressions, whether it be recessions, and I mean, we're going through COVID-19 right now, right? We're making less money than our parents were at the same age. We have less wealth than our parents are at the same age. We have more debt than any other generation at the same age, right? And we are still trying to work towards things that we're passionate about. All while other generations are telling us we're lazy. All we want is easy act. We just want things easily. That we care too much about the superficial. And I'm just like, I feel like you're not looking at it from an empathy standpoint, because if you were, you would completely understand where we're coming from, because it's frustrating for us. And I can attest to this. At 25, my parents were married, already had me on the way. I'm 29. I am not married. I have no children. I cannot pay. I didn't have a house. You know, I don't have kids on the way.
10 years younger than me.
Did these things. Myself, if I grew up in a generation where I am 30 years old and I have a house, I have kids, I'm financially stable, and if my wife alone worked, we would still be fine. That would make me think a particular way, right? So I cannot understand where they come from, where they see us now, maybe we're 29 and we don't have these things, and they're thinking, y'all are lazy. You know, y'all aren't doing things the right way. But it's clear. It's really, really clear. But I think all in is a good time, because I believe that the more hardships you have, it's just setting you up for something so great in the future. And we are working through some hard times. So this has to be training for something amazing.
So Daniel, let's give an example. So you're also a development coach, okay? So let's say I'm 25 years old and I have my debt, and behind the scenes, behind this smile, thank you. Behind the smile, you know, I'm dealing with anxiety, I'm dealing with depression, and I just don't know what to do with my life. I really gravitated to your book. I like to work with you. Daniel, what is a typical coaching program for me, or how do you work with clients?
And I usually really love it if it is the first thing that they do is read the book, because it gives me a baseline for what I need to do with them. Because most times they come to me and say, I read the book, and these are the things that really stuck out to me. And usually, like 8, 9 times out of 10, it's an issue of purpose, right? We are a very purpose-driven generation. We we will work our job and make money, right? But if the job doesn't fulfill some kind of deeper meaning within our core, we get bored so quickly. We get turned off so quickly. Or if we feel like our voice isn't being heard within the organization, we're already like, what's next? This is why we switch jobs like 8 to 10 times in our lifetimes, which is a crazy high number. So for me, most times I always start with purpose, because I need to understand why you do what you do. What do you see as your purpose? Because everything you do will radiate from that. All your goals, all the things that you want to do daily that kind of add up to something in the future, it all stems from your purpose. Because you can't tell me that you want to be financially free or you want to start a business, but you don't even know what you're passionate about. You don't know, what your purpose is, because that makes no sense. That's like saying you want to go to the bank and you have made no plan to get to the bank. You're just gonna open the door and run, right? You don't know what direction you're going. You don't know how long it's gonna take. You have no form of transport. You're just running, right? And that's what a lot of them are doing. And this is what they're trained to do. They're trained to just do, put in action, put in work until it keeps going and going and going. And then you get to a point of, okay, I've put in a lot of work. I haven't really gone anywhere. I don't know where I'm going. And that's where the anxiety comes from, because I felt that anxiety. That anxiety for me was me saying that my purpose was I want to help people, but I hadn't specified how I want to help people. So I said I wanted to be a doctor, could never send the application to actually start medical school, but I kept working a regular job, hated every single minute of working that job, because you have a person with a science background but is working in the bank. And it just wasn't working for me. So every day was just painful, right? And I just had this anxiety on top of that, where I was telling myself, yo, I'm 25, I should have things. I don't know what these things are, but I know I should have things, but I don't have anything. And I'm not working towards getting these things that I want, that I don't know what that I want, right? And it was just pressing more and more and more. And then you see where that whole mental side is coming in, where I'm not able to deal with my emotions, deal with the anxiety, because I don't know where to start. And I see a lot of that, especially when you say 25 and anything under that. 25, you see that a lot. You see that.
Daniel, can I just say something?
Yes.
I find it very interesting because, I mean, you're the age of my children. I did not have children until I was older than you. I wasn't even married at your age. But the purpose, one of the things that's very interesting about what you're saying about purpose, because it also gives you the anxiety. The purpose in my generation was to get married and raise a family. I married someone who I wasn't like thrilled with, but he was of my heritage, and his parents had a story that I wanted to add to, you know what I'm saying? But the purpose, like, it wasn't to serve, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I hear you, and my kids, I came out with $10,000 in student loan debt in 1981. That was a lot more money. I was only making $20,000 annually. So when you say $10,000 today versus $10,000 then, and my husband, by the time we got married, he had his too. We had to pay off too. But, and I'm not saying you're wrong or you're not going through this. I think and my generation, the silent generation, said we're lazy. If you weren't born when Kennedy died, you were no one at work. You didn't know shit. Luckily, I was a child, an infant at home. But I think every generation has these issues from the generation ahead of them, because they're the parents and they're not getting the support always that they need. And the other way to look at it is building on it instead of fighting against it, maybe. Do you know what I'm saying? Like learning a lot from what I learned a lot from people before me, not so much in my family, because they weren't good communicators, but from my coworkers.
Right.
Trying to get information. And listen, it was around the 80s that the 5 streams of income came out, and and pensions were going away. We're going to 401ks. I'm not going to have, my father is retired on a pension longer than he worked. And he worked for 32 years for one company. And what you said about working for companies, that was my generation that did it, because you got on the ladder, the corporate ladder, and we all realized you stayed 5 years, you only made a little bit of progress. But the guy that came in behind you got on the ladder higher. So we, every 5 to 6 years, had a hop between companies, because that was the corporate way of getting. I know a lot of guys who doubled their income just by changing companies. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think this is fabulous what you're doing, but I think also you realize as you get older, you start to realize there's a systemic problem in society, and it's not just your generation.
You know, that's actually interesting that you say that, because I was going to jump in on that. It's been fascinating that these are problems that people think are specific to millennials. I call bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's because when I went back, because I was looking at information about this for quite a while, especially since I've been dealing with Generation Z in my house, which has been so much fun. But I also know that because I'm older, I can remember what it's like to be their age, but I do not know what it's like to be their age in today's time. And Dumbledore once said, that is the folly of, it is not youth's responsibility to know what it's like to be old, but it is the fault of those of us who are older to forget what it's like to be young. So that's the problem I see going on. The thing that I have found to be constant throughout the studies that I have done has been the greatest generation thought that the boomers were lazy and entitled. The boomers thought Generation X were lazy and entitled, and so on and so on and so on. These are the common things that I'm noticing as people get older. They're common threads that we see in the previous generation. And why is that? Well, it's because the generation previous to us has already paved the way and gone further in society. And then part of that paving comes from a time when you, in your life, where you have the energy to make that change. But when you are no longer that age, you step into the next season of your life. Doesn't mean that the people behind you haven't started aging as well and gotten to that point to where they start making progress under their terms in the times that they have come of age. So the progress that was made back in the 80s from people that were of the mid 20s into early 30s elk is different than today's here in the 2020s. So it's a different point in time. So you can only ever understand maybe half of the argument. So you have to give that ability to that level of forgiveness. That other 50%, you have to allow for that benefit of the doubt and let it be worked out and also explored by the other generation. That being said, one thing I find that most millennials, including myself until I did my research, they do not take the time to understand what the previous generations have gone through. Why is that? Well, depending on where you fall within that spectrum, even in the term of millennial between early and late, there's a whole maturity gap that happens, right? Your younger millennials, you actually still don't necessarily have a fully developed frontal cortex. And your older millennials are just like, how the hell did I get here? I remember dial-up internet. When I hear a fax machine, when I call the wrong number, does anybody else have PTSD from that besides me? Anybody else? Right? You tried downloading one video, it took an hour and a half, right? And it was just a picture at that time. And it wasn't even the one you meant to hit, but you couldn't close out the browser.
Open an email.
Right? You couldn't open an email. It sucked. Oh, you would start the download, you would go watch an episode or two of Friends, you would come back and make sure and hope that Explorer didn't crash. We didn't have that many options, right? It was Explorer and AOL. That's what I knew. All right. So there's a difference between the younger and the older millennials that were there. But the part that's interesting is when I started, I saw this really fascinating post, and I wish I had saved it. But it talked about the difference between what my grandparents went through being born in 1910 through 1930. And they didn't have it easy either. They went through the Depression, World War I and II, Vietnam, anything to do with anything with Reagan or Nixon. They did not recognize that the dollar was devalued, but that happened. They went through Cold Wars. They went through the gas shortage. They went through a housing bubble and collapse. They also went through all the drama of the 2008 financial crisis. I mean, they haven't had it easy either. So when we go and say, oh, they had it so much better than we did, I call bullshit. I call bullshit. Now, does that mean it was easier than ours? No, it was just different. And those are the words I find problematic when people try to explain or express themselves when they talk about the millennial experience as being one. Because when they say, oh, they had it easier, no, they had it different. Time was different. Society was different. Culture was different. It wasn't easier. And no one is more entitled now than we were then. We are just a continuation of a legacy. So there's a difference in how words matter. Words absolutely matter when it comes to trying to describe what we are experiencing and how we live as a culture, as a demographic, as a society. And even as a later millennial now, Nelson and I are close in age. I'm younger. But as we go through this, my experience being a white man is different than Nelson's being a Filipino. So it's different even on that regard. So I'm not going to say it's better or worse, it's different. And that's what frustrates me when people talk about that entitlement. It's like you're not giving the benefit of the doubt or the courtesy, the respect that someone else is experiencing a different state in time from a different perspective. That's where I feel we need to start bridging that gap to understand what's really going on. And I have to remind myself of that daily with some of the people I live with. Stephanie?
I think you touched on something kind of important when you say words matter, because it's about how messaging gets put out, because, it was only like 3-4 years ago where, the hike in avocado prices was blamed on the millennial. And because they didn't want to buy more avocados. Because they didn't have the income to keep paying for that and pay the tariff to offset from Mexico, from other parts of the world that were being, so it's again, like, I hear you, and I hear what you're saying. And I think it also then ties into how then using your words to message it is then like to further like cause the friction, right? To say like, oh, the millennials are to blame that avocados have raised $1 in price. And it's just like, no, it's just, yeah, like some of us like avocados, other ones don't. But the ones who do can't afford it sometimes because we're in a place where we don't have $10,000 in student loan debt, like the average is like a lot higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate that I was able to only take out a $10,000 loan. My brother had a $45,000 loan, and then I know other people who are like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Like my cousin, she went to NYU for undergrad and master's, and then went to what's it called, law school in New Orleans, and has another $150,000 in loans on top of that. From those first two things, so I hear you and I understand that. But when there's messaging that is just meant to add more friction, it's just like, well, why can't we just say that there are tariffs that are causing a higher rate, a higher price for this art, for this product, and it's not one demographic's fault. It's like no one can pay for it, because why can't the Generation Y, Generation X pay for it? Why aren't they going out to buy it? But no one's saying that. Why isn't the older generation, who are like the great parents, why aren't they buying the avocado? And they're not being said, oh, it's because the millennial didn't want to buy it.
So fun fact, just to make it a little lighter, did you know that avocado is the Aztec word for tree testicle? I know. Thought I would share that with you, Daniel.
And Daniel, I want to just say something. One of the reasons I brought this up and opened this up this way is because you have a gift and you have an audience. And unfortunately, I did not read your book, but if Nelson says it's fabulous, I know it's amazing. So it's to say the thought process for possibly a second book of really how to change the narrative, of how we're having this conversation with people and how we're really talking about these problems. It's not, it's really, it's sad that we talk about it generationally. And half the problem, sort of like Jacob was sort of saying it, when I stepped into the playing field at 28 in a major bank in Manhattan, I was managing 40-year-olds. Don't you think, now I had conversations with people to make sure they were okay with that, but some people weren't. And that's a big problem because you see yourself being outsourced. You see yourself losing a job. And that's why we shut down. Now that I'm on the other side of the fence, we shut down and we don't hand over information that we need to. And that's why we get thought of as not liking the next generation when we're trying to preserve our way of life.
I really like what you said about the systemic problem that we have, and I like Daniel's input on this. I feel that the systemic problem is a lack of respect to and fro every generation. Between younger to older, older to younger, there's a lack of understanding and a lack of compassion on what the experiences have been for the previous generation and what the current ones are going through. And it's clear because the previous generations are reaping what they sow because they planted the seeds, they made the laws, they created the movements that made that our life today, which are now bearing fruit that they don't like. However, it is up to us to correct it. And Daniel, this is what I want to ask you. Because millennials are so, we have our struggles. We do have our shortcomings. Everyone does. But there are certain problem-solving benefits to being a millennial. There are certain things that we are able to accomplish because we do think faster. We do think in more of an artificial intelligence. We are able to command a different solution for old world problems. What are some of the benefits you're finding to being a millennial as far as correcting the wrongs of the past? And how can we implement them without placing blame needlessly on those of us who are our grandparents?
Yeah. I think we definitely do bring that innovation and bring the technology side of things. You were talking about that friction, especially between generations. I just wanted to say that's real normal. That's completely normal. When millennials get older, we will have it with the younger generation. That's just how it goes with transfer of power, right? We are going to be taking over the workforce soon, and we bring new ideas, little experience. So we are just seen as radical, but that's just how it always is. Right. But again, to me, when I read the book, I wanted to keep it specific to certain things that I feel like are issues for us, although they could be issues to everyone. While you were asking that question, I was just thinking about how things have shifted because of COVID-19 and how hilarious it is. Because, for instance, I remember a friend of mine having a conversation with his manager about doing remote working because he said that he could be as productive if he worked at home. And they told him that they don't have the infrastructure for that. They can't measure it, it can't work. And then COVID-19 happened and everybody had to work from home. And then all of a sudden the infrastructure was there and they're now turning to the millennials to find out, okay, how can we make this work? What is the technology that we need to be utilizing so that y'all can work at home? How can we measure the results to make sure that what you're doing at home is still enough for what we need? And I just thought that it was really hilarious because, you know, we were seen as being radical, right? Not innovative, radical. But then we are now forced in a position where you have to think outside the box. And they're turning to the millennials, they're turning to the younger ones to find out, okay, how can we make this work? Right? A simple things as holding meetings on Zoom and all these different things. I literally see people have to handhold the generation above them to show them how to use it and to show them the value of it, right? So you're seeing now that
not much older either.
Yeah, it's not.
They're not even old. Like 50 or above. They're not old, right? Like my grandmother. Let me tell you, I'm so glad she's not posting on Facebook anymore. I mean, she's still there. Don't get me wrong, but like some of my mentors that you guys know we work with, they have no idea how to make an Instagram post. Stephanie, I've been talking about this at length for some of them, and they're not old individuals, right? They're actually, I mean, they might have to pop like half a Viagra, but they're not like old yet. So, but they can still get things moving, right? They can still build their businesses. And you're right, though. I think that's really fascinating that now COVID actually offers us this opportunity to bridge some of that gap and open those conversations up.
Yeah. So you see that they are now realizing that we're not just talk, we actually have things to back it up with. And I think it's wonderful because it's opening the door for us to show them what more they can do and what more we can offer to what can be possible in the future. Because again, COVID happened, is happening. It's probably still going to happen next year, but the results of it are going to be felt for years, right? Which means the way we do things is going to be changed forever. And we need to be a part of that change because we have the ideas, we have the technical know-how and the use of technology to make that shift. So it's to me, it's a good thing that they can see, oh, okay, they kind of know what they're doing. And we're seeing it now because we need them. So now when it's time to make those bigger changes, we should be on the table to actually give that feedback moving forward. Because again, when we start making that shift of power and we are going to be making more of the decisions, at least we would have been there to kind of lay the groundwork so that it's not just all over the place. I think I saw somebody's hand up. I'm not sure.
Yeah, mine. Yeah. So I love that you said that you brought this story. And part of it is, again, where like we have this like generational, like systemic problem where we judge the other generation, you know, like I'm 29 like you are. So props to early 90 babies. I get it. We're right there, right? You know, we're like what it is to be a millennial. And, but I've always looked younger than I am, always. So I've always never been taken seriously because they think, oh, you must be, 17 years old, 19 years old. Like, what do you know? And it happens constantly. Like ageism can also happen to someone who's younger, right? And I think that's part of it. And I say that because my mom, for example, for close to 18 years has been able to work from home, like almost like 80% of her time. But because she was able to negotiate her like standing, because she's like, I came in with this experience to this job, and this is my non-negotiables if you want me to continue working here. So there was a sense of, shit, this woman, we want to keep her on our team. She's bringing us value, and she's been doing this type of work for years, even before she came to our company, So like, part of it is that it's hard for us to negotiate because they don't think we have the experience, or they don't want to take us seriously until, oh crap, like the shoe dropped, COVID hit, and they have to adapt to what our needs were. So I found that really interesting because, like, again, my mom has been for the last 18 years being able to work from home the majority of her time. But also she tells her people, I don't, because she's also a salaried position. So she's also like, the work's gets to get done. And I'm usually like, I'll work till 2:30 in the morning. You'll see emails being sent out for me by 2:30 in the morning. I'm doing my job. I'm doing everything. I'm going through the contracts. I'm doing this and that and the third. So like,
remember when it was like, when we were just starting the workforce? I mean, I was started a few years before you, but not many. But like when they said, if you sent an email out that was timestamped at like 1 a.m. or 2:30, you were being unprofessional. So that's why they had the whole like set the email up to send like the program to automatically send at some point. I'm like, now I've gotten to the point, I'm like, hey, if you're awake, respond to the text message. I'll send it out because I don't know where you are in the world now. So I'll send a text message out. It could be 1 o'clock my time, 10 o'clock their time. I don't know. But an email, if I get one now, I don't even look at the timestamp. Well, no, I look, but I'm not bothered by it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is anybody else bothered by the timestamp?
No.
See how things change? I think that's fascinating. This is such a cool conversation. It's not at all what I expected, Daniel. Thank you.
I think it's
for being the
Stephanie,
catalyst.
I think
the persons who are working from home, and new problems are arising where, okay, when I was at work, I work from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. But now that I'm home, my manager feels like they can email me, call me at any time. I have friends who are working from home, their boss is calling them at 8, 9 p.m. asking for work, right? So now you see there's gonna have to be a shift where some lines on the sand need to be drawn for this is the new normal. But we are past the transition phase, and let's stick to what is real, because you don't want to get taken advantage of, because you know how quickly that happens. And as soon as that happens for us, we call bullshit. And we make a lot of noise.
Well, Daniel, it happened when we had to start carrying cell phones. There were company phones. We were being texted and called at all hours of the night. And Stephanie, I think something you need to realize, when your mother took the job, she probably had 15 years or more experience under her belt. So age sometimes is the answer. I mean,
but that's part of
my kids started at 14 in certain jobs, don't get me wrong, but it's just years of experience.
And that's what I was saying. I was like, part of it is that the negotiation came because she had experience, and something that a lot of millennials have is that they can't even get in the door some places because you need to have X, Y, and Z on top of what we want. Like, and so part of it, it makes it difficult to then negotiate. So I'm guessing, you know, Daniel's friend had been working at this place for a while before saying, hey, can it be possible to like shift part of my work through my being working from home because I having external circumstances that would require a little more flexibility, and they shut it down. Even if he proved to be a valued employee. That's part of it, is what my point is.
Yeah, but I think what the point Jacob and I are making, these are cycles. These are the same cycles like the real estate market, like the stock market. It's just no one bothers to track them. I went in the marketplace in 1981, and as a programmer, I had to take a test in some companies in a room, and there were 40-year-old teachers who were not being pushed out because we had a strikes in New York City. So anyway, I think it's a cycle, is what I'm trying to say.
I think the shift is also
Pendulum or-
that, you know, we were told that we get the education, we get the job, but now more people are educated. So for instance, in Trinidad, everybody has a degree, right? So you're having a degree is not gonna change anything really. It's gonna make it more competitive. And this is my pet peeve with millennials a little bit, with my own generation, is that I feel like sometimes we think the effort we're putting in is maximum effort when it is really not even trying that hard. Because if you know that all your competition has a degree, what are you doing to put yourself
to be different?
Are you saying I will work for free for a month? Wow, you with my expertise. Did you do some extra courses that make you look different? You know, because there was a time when I was working, my whole job was just looking at resumes and filtering them in to the company to see who we'd hire. And all those resumes were the same. And then I'm thinking to myself, if it's been 3 months and 6 months and I haven't gotten a job, but all I've done is send 10 resumes and I feel like, oh, okay, that's enough, then something's wrong. First of all, I should be sending quadruple times that amount, but then also I should be thinking, how can I better myself so that I look more attractive to the people that I want to be hired by? And I realized that's not a normal trend of thinking. Because it's only when I started thinking that way, how could I make myself more attractive to people who I want to work with, is when things change. But when it was, how can I get them to come into my circle, you know? And I feel like there's not a millennials are putting in that thought. They just think, well, I was told this is what the people were doing when they were older. So this has to work for me, or this is what I was told since I was younger. So this has to work for me. And we're not getting past the, okay, that's not how it actually is. This is what I need to do. We're still on the, oh, I guess this is not how it actually is, autopilot, right? And it's that autopilot mode that is causing all the anxiety, all the stress. And there just comes a point, and this is the main point of the book, where you have to realize that it's not about your environment. It's not about this shit that's happening around you. It's about you. It's about what you do. It's about what you learn. It's about who you surround yourself with. And it's about the drive you have within yourself to achieve. Because you get to a point where nothing is going to get handed to you. It's all up to you. And if you aren't actively trying to get somewhere, you're not going to go anywhere. These comments are cracking me up.
I know, right? How many of them are, you're only seeing the public ones, not the private ones. By the way, Nelson has the dirtiest mind you've ever met in your life. And I love it. Pamela is slightly behind him, but classic.
Yeah, but I keep it private.
Right,
you know, Daniel, I find this not only interesting, but a little sad, because I was a manager. It was like 10, 15 years ago now, looking at a lot of resumes in IT. And I always looked for the most interesting ones to be the people that came in after they all had, after you sorted out by what they had as experience or knowledge, then you went to who was interesting. And I know back in 88, my husband and I were moving down to Florida, and he's in the art field, of course, but we had to make up a resume that physically looked different than anyone else's, so it would be opened. I mean, if you're just going to send an 8.5 by 11 beige piece of paper, it's going to wind up in the circular file, right? You have to catch, and I find it interesting that you're telling me that people are still doing that, white paper or beige paper or something, right? Because
Well, now these days they're sending everything electronically, yeah? So now you have to stand out within that first
yeah, but there's Canva, for heaven's sakes, it's so easy, right? I mean, it takes a little thought, but yeah, I understand.
The thing is, what kills me is that I think we get caught up too much in the negative and all the things we can't do, because you notice and this doesn't just go for millennials, this goes for any generation, all the people who only see the possibilities are the ones who realize how much there is, because you can literally Google, YouTube, find a book about any topic. You could search about how to make my resume more presentable or more attractive to people to employers, right? But that is not the first thought. We just think, well, everything is unfair, right? But you use that knowledge, and then all of a sudden, the 3 things you learned are the things that are getting you 3, 4, 5 job offers. But again, if you think with a defeatist kind of attitude where, oh, everything is against me, as opposed to, okay, what can I do to now get there? It's not even about the environment. It's all up here. It's all in here. And when people start to realize that is when they start to see the change.
So I want to interject real quick, because it is 4:05. I want to respect people's time who have to leave. I want to continue the conversation for those of you who want to stay along. This has been so much fun. I know some of you are watching on Facebook, so I want to respect your time. But I want to make sure that I put out there, I'm going to put in the comments the link to Daniel's book, The Millennial Mind. You can buy it on Amazon. You can also watch it on Kindle. Yes, I did scope it out. He also has some great interviews on YouTube. I'll put the one I like the most on there, where he's being interviewed by this gorgeous woman with short blonde hair. And I just thought she was really fascinating and really complimentary. She liked you a lot. She was looking into your eyes and thinking appropriate things the entire interview.
This guy over here.
You know the interview I'm talking about, don't you?
I know what you're speaking about, but I'm not entertaining this conversation.
That's all right. I'll entertain it. That link will also be put in the comments below, so you guys can also watch that. So, Daniel, you have to understand, I know you're from a conservative island. I'm not. But we're gonna have a great time with you. Trust me, a lot of fun. So, but if you have to go, please know we will be recording this. This is also going to be on the Investor Party app. So if you've not downloaded that, you can actually watch it there, and you can also find it on our social media handles. Also, the last thing we'll say, we're going to keep the conversation going, but if you're finding this content valuable, please like, subscribe, add us to your mailing list if you want, whatever it's got to be, and find us on our social media so we are able to stay in touch with you. We are going to be having these calls Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have another call on Wednesday with Nelson.
I forgot Wednesday, but I might guess it's on Friday.
Who's your guest on Friday?
Yeah, Angie from Colorado. She's nonprofit.
Wonderful. Angie from Colorado, because that's a professional. So we're going to find her on Friday.
There's a lot of
history guests on Wednesday. Yeah. We are also going to be having Mr. Pip Selleck come on probably on Wednesday to talk about what they're doing with Burbank Academy as well. So that's going to be awesome. If you know Pip Selleck, you will love what he's got to do. Now, I'm going to continue the conversation and pick this back up because there's something I want to bring. Pamela said this is also kind of depressing, and I understand that, but I don't like leaving comments in that place because there are some real positive changes that have happened. One of them being, oh, we lost Nelson already, poker. Well, there he is. So one of the things that I had to close my window that I find really fascinating by what we are able to do is the fact that we are able to solve problems. We are able to be compassionate. And honestly, it comes down to manners, in my frank opinion. But something you write in your book, you got a chapter on the millennial myopia, right? That's what it's called?
Yeah, myopia.
So tell me about what you meant by that.
Yeah, I found that, you know, and a lot of what I wrote in the book is from consultations with millennials. I found that a lot of them think very, very short-sightedly, right? So their goals, their expectations are maybe on a week-by-week basis, or maybe even a month-by-month. And when I ask them questions about, well, where you see yourself in a year, 2 years, what are the goals, what is the vision you have for yourself, that's the first time that they've ever thought about it. And for me, that's very problematic. You know, I am definitely an advocate for having an idea of what you want, at least a year, 5 years, 10 years. Even if it's not concrete, that's fine. At least have something. Because again, as we've learned from COVID, things can change in an instant and you can work by a month or quarterly basis. But if you don't know what you want to do in a year, 5 years, that you're setting yourself up, because especially for that period when I was working in the bank and I was miserable, I learned a lot. I saw people, because I will never forget this, because when I went into the interview, I was really honest with them. I said, I'm only going to be here for 2 years. This is a transition period for me. The interviewer laughed. You know, he laughed because he's heard multiple people tell him that same thing, and then they end up staying there for 30, 40 years, right? And then I meet the persons who've been there for 30, 40 years, and they tell me their stories about all the regret and how they didn't know about these things that they should have been focusing on. They took too long to pay their pension, to follow this particular dream. And when you see that for enough time, you realize that, yo, life is too short to not to be thinking about what you want from life and go for it. You know, I even did a video on this yesterday. I told persons, look yourself in the mirror the next 3 days and ask yourself if what I am doing today, if I were to die today, is what I'm doing today something that I actually want to do, right?
Daniel, you belong in this party. Exactly
no,
what
but
you do
and
here.
it's not even to be grim or anything, but the reality is, if you answer no to that question too many days in a row, then it's an indicator that you should be doing something different, because the same job you're probably killing yourself out for and you hate and whatnot is the same job that's going to replace you, you know, when you get sick or you can't work or you die. So why not put it into something that you actually care about, that you're actually excited about, or if not fully, on the side? Because again, life is too short. why are you spending all this time on something you hate?
So that's something you're hitting on, something that Simon Sinek speaks on a lot. He's one of my favorite authors. I don't know why this is funny to me, because I am definitely not. I don't speak like an analytical person. I definitely don't like numbers. I am not someone that's really organized. I just happen to create really well, right? But how Simon Sinek talks is very like data oriented, and I understand it because it's rational, right? And he talks about how millennials now, and you hit on this a second ago, how they want to do something that matters. They want a purpose. They want something that's fulfilling, because it's almost like, because we're so far behind the 8 ball as far as economically, because of previous laws and influences outside of our control, that we are not as money driven, so we can become more community driven. And part of that is leading our society into more of an inclusive dynamic if we allow it that way. We have to intentionally do that, right? It's not going to happen automatically, but if we allow it to, if we encourage that, it becomes a lot more about, like Pam was saying, the experiences, right? And not the obligations that we have with having a job, having kids, everything that goes with it. So I think that's a very powerful message I give to say. What I want to do, if there's anything we can do with here at Investor Party that we'd like to do, if you have any millennials that are watching this or anybody really who is doing exactly what they say, they want to enjoy life and not have regrets, that's exactly what we talk about. The saddest thing I find, and you guys can comment on this or not, the saddest thing I find is that at this point in time, we have more baby boomers retiring who were entrepreneurs, selling their businesses off market. Because when they go online and they say, we're going to sell our businesses, what do their clients do? They leave. So now they can't say we're selling our business because they can't afford that loss. We're in COVID now, they don't know how to take their businesses online. They're still trying to retire and they're terrified. Millennials, however, have the lowest interest on being entrepreneurs out of any of our previous generations. Yet our tax code here in the United States favors entrepreneurship above any other business. So what does that mean? It means we have an opportunity. If you are a millennial and you want to actually get all the things that you dreamed that you could have, that freedom, the ability to make a difference in the world, have that security that your parents never really gave you or you never really saw, that means that you can get businesses off market at a better price and grow them at a much better way. Because if you just make a social media profile, guess what? That does a lot of good for you anyway. So there are so many good things that you can do as a millennial. I just want to give any of us who are out there permission. I'm giving you permission to dream, to hope, and to fail. Because if you fail, you are succeeding. That means you tried. Please, like Daniel says, do not be scared of living the life that you want to create. It's okay. You're gonna be fine. And we're all in this together. So Daniel, how can people find you and reach out to you when they want to learn more about the Millennial Mind
So
and where to buy your t-shirts?
So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find me on Daniel Martin Francis, or the company name, it's Rebit Limited, REBIT Limited. Find me on any of those, reach out, have a conversation. I find that people love to slide in my DMs, and especially if they listen to the book or read the book, they'll say, well, I disagree with this, or this really resonates with me. I love those conversations. I love to have those discussions because I love to learn the experiences of other people and how what I said, basically how they experienced it. So feel free, reach out. I tell it as I see it, and I don't mince words about it.
I'm looking very forward to having you back on this. This was a great call. It's very interactive. I'm so glad you allowed us to engage with you. Thank you for coming on the show. And to everybody on the call, thank you for coming to the party. Party on. See you next time. Bye, everyone.